The impact wasn't as dramatic as the simulations promised. No cinematic fireball, no plumes of dirt raining down. Just a shudder through the hull and a grinding crunch as the ship's undercarriage gave up the will to hold itself together. The dashboard blinked once, then died, then blinked again as if reconsidering, then stayed dead. I sat very still, hands gripping the armrests like they might hold the entire wreck together by sheer hope. The smell of burnt circuitry and what I suspected was melted protein bar filled the cabin. "Well," I muttered, tapping the dead console. 5 stars for the landing, 0 for the parking job. The window, if you could call the cracked composite a window, showed nothing but endless violet sand and the skeletal remains of what once might have been buildings. Tall, thin, and bent like arthritic fingers clawing at a sky that didn't care. I stepped out of the ship. Correction, I fell asterisk out of the ship, tripping on a dislodged panel and performing a full-body interpretive dance across the sand. If there were gods watching, they were now deeply disappointed. Virelia 6, the forgotten colony, the don't go there of every navigational database. And yet here I was, because somewhere in my superior officer's brainstem had nestled the bright idea. Hey, we've got a surplus scout with nothing to do. Let's send him to an ancient war zone. There was no wind, but the air carried a hum, a constant, low vibration like the world was muttering to itself. And then I saw her. At first I thought it was just another broken statue, until she moved asterisk. Slight tilt of the head, just enough to suggest either curiosity or the mental calculation of how hard to throw a rock. I raised both hands, peaceful, non-threatening. Definitely not armed unless you counted sarcasm. She stepped forward. She was tall, at least a head taller than me, and she moved with the kind of calm that made me aware of how much I tripped over my own boots. Skin the color of overcast sky, robes that looked woven from starchin and utility tape, and eyes that gave the distinct impression she'd already read my thoughts and judged them subpar. Hello," I said. "Emergency landing. I come in peace. I also come with a limited supply of terrible jokes and a deeply repressed fear of being stabbed." She blinked, then turned and walked away. I stood there a moment, wondering if I'd just been ghosted by the last living native of a lost civilization. But she paused, glanced back, and with a gesture that could only be described as tiredly tolerant asterisk, waved me to follow. So I did. She led me through the ruins, past crumbled towers and half-sunken domes, all of them inscribed with looping symbols that glowed faintly in the dark like bioluminescent graffiti. A broken drone buzzed overhead, coughed out a recording in 6 languages, none of them mine, then spiraled into a wall and exploded in what I could only describe as the world's saddest fireworks display. We arrived at what might once have been a courtyard, now overtaken by vines that pulsed faintly, like the ground itself still breathed. She pointed at a flat stone and then sat across from it, so I sat, and then she began to speak. Not in a way I could understand, more like music than language. Rise and fall, consonants like clicks and soft hisses. It felt like hearing poetry underwater. I tried to respond. She listened politely to my attempts and then repeated the word Ralkesh. I pointed to myself. "Ralkesh?" She nodded once, then pointed at herself. "Kivri. Okay, Kivri, I'm well, no, you've named me already. Cool, Ralkesh it is." She chuckled, soft, dry, almost like a cough of amusement. I decided to count it as a win. Over the next few days, we traded language like 2 drunk poets trying to reinvent grammar. I'd draw in the sand. She'd laugh and correct. I'd point at something, she'd name it, and I'd promptly forget and name it thingy instead. Sometimes she'd let it slide. Sometimes she'd smack the back of my hand with a stick. I took it as affection. Meals were, let's say, experimental. We shared my ration packs until they ran out. Turns out she hated the synthetic lasagna with a passion that bordered on religious, and then moved on to local fare. Roasted vine beetles. Glowing fruit that tasted like hot lemons. One evening she offered me a cube that hissed softly when bitten. I made a face. She laughed so hard she choked. The word came up the first time on the 5th day. We were watching the twin moons rise when she said it, just casually, as if adding a period to the end of a sentence. "Knave." I paused. "Knave." She went still. Then, as if a switch had been flipped, she stood and walked away. That night she didn't sing by the fire, so of course I asked again. Over the next week I heard it often, at the end of thoughts, when she stared at old walls, once when she touched a broken console that sparked beneath her fingers. "Knave." Every time I asked, she'd fall silent. Not angry, not annoyed, just silent, as if I'd asked something forbidden or sacred or both. I started keeping a journal, drawing symbols, comparing them. I became obsessed in that low-key, not at all healthy way that creeps up on people who spend too much time in ancient ruins with a mysterious woman who might be part AI. One morning, I woke to find her gone. I panicked. Did she leave? Was this one of those you've been deemed unworthy situations? Had I snored too loud? Then I heard her calling. I followed her voice to the edge of a collapsed tunnel. She pointed down, grinned. "I am not crawling into that," I said. She tilted her head. Raised an eyebrow, I sighed. "Of course I'm crawling into that. Because when a tall, enigmatic alien who might be the last living speaker of a language older than your civilization gestures toward a dark hole in the ground, you crawl. It's basically science. I was never fond of tunnels. Nothing good ever started with, 'Let's go underground,' especially when uttered by someone whose idea of light was a glowing moss and whose last gift to me was a fruit that made my eyebrows sweat. The tunnel smelled like old copper and wet stone. Kivri moved ahead with the effortless grace of someone who either knew exactly where she was going or had fully committed to faking it. I, on the other hand, moved like a sack of hardware tumbling down an escalator, loud, clumsy, and occasionally tripping over my own thoughts. Do all ruins come with optional spelunking, or is this a premium feature? I asked, half hoping the echoes would laugh back. She looked over her shoulder, deadpan. Ralkesh complain ratio exceeds acceptable threshold. Recommend silence. Was that sarcasm? She didn't answer, but I'm pretty sure her shoulder twitched in the way someone's does when they're hiding a smirk. The tunnel sloped downward in lazy spirals, and bioluminescent lines pulsed faintly along the walls. I reached out to touch one and instantly regretted it as a mild zap leapt up my fingers and made my elbow sing. I hissed and shook my hand. "You could have warned me." She tapped her temple. "Learned from last mistake." "You mean asterisk me?" "Exactly." We reached a chamber that opened like a broken heart, cracked, massive, filled with cables that hung from the ceiling like petrified vines. In the center was a large stone disc inscribed with hundreds of those swirling glyphs I'd seen all over the ruins. This was different, though. The glyphs were glowing, and the air felt charged, as if it remembered being electric once. Kivri stepped forward and crouched beside the disc. She pressed her palm to the surface, and the symbols shifted, reshaped themselves like waking from a long sleep. I took a cautious step forward. "Is it alive?" She tilted her head. "Dormant intelligence, fragmented. Like a really smart toaster." She paused. "Toaster, you know, metal box, bread goes in, happiness comes out." She stared at me with the quiet concern reserved for people who name their tools and speak to vending machines. Then she waved me over. I knelt beside her, and she pointed to a single glyph that pulsed in rhythm with her touch. It wasn't one I recognized. Definitely not from the glossary I'd been secretly compiling in my notes. "Knave," she said softly. I stared at the symbol, again with that word. I opened my mouth to ask, but she beat me to it. "Do not." "That's fair," I said. "But you keep saying it. It's like the musical guest that won't leave the stage." She stood abruptly and brushed dust off her palms. "Some words are not taught," she said. "Some are earned." "Oh, is that how you got to be cryptic overlord of this ruin?" "Birthright," she said, entirely too seriously. Then added, "and extra classes." We returned to the surface before midday, which on Virelia 6 meant the sky had turned the kind of angry orange you only see when a planet is still mad about something you haven't done yet. We ate in the shadow of a collapsed obelisk. She offered me a chunk of some grayish root that tasted like a mixture of toothpaste and metal regret. We spent the next several days constructing language like children building a spaceship out of old cereal boxes. Our progress was stunningly mediocre, but there was joy in the process. I learned the word for star, which had 3 syllables, and required a tongue flick I wasn't sure was physically safe. She learned coffee, though it came out more like coffee, and used it to describe anything remotely energizing, including a beetle that had once tried to bite my eye. The days bled together in sand and laughter. We played a sort of game where I would name objects with deliberately ridiculous terms, and she would correct them with increasing amounts of exasperation. "That," I declared, pointing to a rock shaped vaguely like a duck, "is a quacronium throne." She stared. "Stone, quacronium." She rubbed her temples. "You are exhausting, and yet you keep feeding me. That's on you asterisk." One evening, as the twin moons turned the sky a soft maroon, she handed me a flat, obsidian-like panel. It flickered faintly as I touched it. "Memory slate," she said. "Old." "Yours?" She shook her head. "Found, abandoned." The slate displayed images, grainy holograms of her people, cities with spires that reached beyond clouds, children laughing beside metallic trees that shimmered with ambient energy. Then the laughter stopped. Flames, screams, symbols, red ones scrolling rapidly over the image. The slate dimmed. I looked at her. She didn't meet my gaze. "Knave," she whispered again. I reached for the slate to replay it, but it powered down. She turned away and began walking. This time I didn't follow. Instead, I sat there, staring at the spot where the image had glitched. That same glyph. The same damn one. I sketched it in the dirt again, trying to link its form to anything she'd taught me. Nothing. Later, as I returned to our makeshift shelter, she was already curled up, her breathing slow. I sat beside the fire, added one more log, and stared into the flames. "Just one word," I muttered. "Why hide one word?" The fire crackled but offered no opinion. I didn't sleep much that night. When I did, I dreamed of symbols burning through sky and a voice, hers but deeper, layered with something ancient, whispering that same word over and over. When I woke, she was gone again, and this time the glyph was carved into the stone beside where I'd slept. Not drawn, carved, clean, deep, fresh. Knave. Okay, now it was personal. I didn't plan to become a conspiracy theorist. That sort of thing usually starts with a cracked screen, a tin-foil hat, and too many hours in a basement. But when your alien roommate sneaks off at sunrise, leaves you a freshly carved symbol that glows faintly under starlight, and refuses to translate the one word she repeats more than food, danger, or stop poking that, you start asking questions. Also, you start following her. Not stalking asterisk, mind you, more like quiet scientific observation, with snacks, and a stick in case something needed poking that definitely asterisk shouldn't asterisk be poked. I found her at the edge of what I'd come to call the crater that probably should not be entered. A massive gouge in the earth filled with the rusted bones of old tech, ships, satellites, towers torn in half like someone got mad at a particularly large collection of IKEA furniture. Kivri stood on a ledge overlooking it all, her hands clasped behind her back like a general surveying a war she hadn't lost, just postponed. I cleared my throat. She didn't turn. "You are not stealthy." That's what the Beatles say, too. She turned slightly, just enough to offer a smirk that she immediately crushed beneath a sigh. "You followed me." "I brought root crisps," I said, holding out the pouch. She snatched them without breaking eye contact. "You are forgiven for now." We sat on the ledge together, the bag crinkling between us. She munched thoughtfully. I tried not to stare at the war zone below us. The tech twisted and broken into impossible angles, some of it humming with occasional bursts of static electricity or a fizzing light that reminded me of a dying soda can. "What is this place?" I asked. "Grave." I was hoping for something less ominous, like slightly scorched amusement park. Her eyes flicked to mine. "It was a command nexus, Central Intelligence Core. We tried to deactivate it before the collapse." Tried being the operative word. She didn't respond, but I watched her jaw tighten. We explored the rim for hours. I found a half-buried drone the size of a refrigerator, covered in rust and caution symbols. I poked it with the stick. It coughed once, spat out a warning in 4 languages, still none of them mine, and then played what sounded suspiciously like an elevator version of Beethoven's Ninth before shutting down completely. "Technological dignity clearly not a top priority," I muttered. Kivri was already 15 meters away, peeling vines from a control column taller than both of us. She pointed at a panel. "Knave." I groaned. "Not again." "It is important. It is annoying asterisk." She pressed her hand to the panel. The vines recoiled like scolded cats. A low rumble pulsed through the ground beneath us, and I felt my teeth vibrate in a way that suggested they were being used as unauthorized antennas. The column rose, revealing a staircase spiraling downward into pitch darkness. I peered over the edge. "Okay, but next time can't we just do dinner?" "Stairs or silence," she said. "Are those my only options?" She nodded, then started walking. Halfway down, the walls began to glow, lines of light flickering to life in pale blue arcs. The symbols reappeared, more of them now, dense and overlapping, like they were fighting for space. I noticed one that looked a lot like Knave, but twisted, angrier. "Kivri, is this one of those situations where we wake up an angry AI and it tries to reprogram my skeleton into a chair?" She considered. "Possibly. That's not as comforting as you think it is." At the bottom of the stairs stood a door made of transparent alloy. Behind it, a room, intact, clean, bright. The kind of clean that suggested something inside still cared about dust particles. She placed her hand against the access panel. It chirped once, scanned her, and then pulsed red. "Access denied." a voice said in flawless standard Galactic. Clearance insufficient. Please submit retinal override or primary gene seed key. Kivri stepped back. Still locked. Still, I asked. I've tried before. You're not the authorized user. She glanced at me, then like it was the most casual thing in the universe said, I was hoping you might be. I stared at her. Excuse me, what? You activated the slate. It responded to you. You're from one of the seeded lineages. You mean Earth asterisk. I'm from Earth asterisk. Our greatest technological achievement is arguing with toasters and losing. She shrugged. Lineage doesn't guarantee competence. Wow, just tear into me like that, huh? She handed me a lens. Try the panel. With zero confidence and a deep belief that I was about to accidentally launch something, I stepped forward. The panel blinked, scanned me. Then, access granted. Welcome, Prime User. The door hissed open. I turned slowly, trying not to look smug. I'm not saying I'm a big deal, but don't make me regret this, she muttered, walking past me. Inside, the room was a museum of future nightmares. Transparent pods lined the walls, most filled with thick fluid and outlines of humanoid shapes. Consoles buzzed to life, displaying streams of code and what looked like planetary models, Earth among them. A soft voice began reading aloud a report that included phrases like geospatial incursion zones, latent threats, and imminent protocol escalation. I reached for the closest console. It welcomed me by name, *Ralkesh*, which was deeply unsettling since I'd made that name up. Kivri called me that as a joke. Right. Kivri, I asked. She was staring at a pod. One of the forms inside shifted. They're not dead, she whispered. Suspended, waiting. For what? For the word. The same word, always the same word. I stepped back. My eyes caught the glyph again, now larger on the far wall, etched deep and glowing from within. Knave. She turned to me. You still want to know what it means? Yes, you're not ready. That's the worst answer in history. It's the only one that keeps us alive. I looked around the room, at the pods, the consoles, the symbol, my symbol. The planet hadn't just responded to me. It had been waiting. There are certain moments in life that give you a very specific kind of existential indigestion. For most people, it's reading an old yearbook. For me, it was standing in a cryo-vault full of mildly ominous humanoid soup packets, while a talking console called me by a name I didn't give it. The room still glowed with unsettling friendliness, like the kind of dentist office where you're sure the anesthetic is a lie. Kivri circled a central console. She touched the interface lightly, her fingers moving in swift, practiced arcs. Glyphs bloomed and shifted. I watched from a safe distance, meaning I stood just close enough to look useful, but far enough that if anything exploded, I could blame atmospheric instability. They're all in stasis, she said, scanning readouts. Some partial degradation, but the core signals are intact. Great, I said. So it's a nap party. What happens if they wake up and find out I've been using their lounge without authorization? She gave me a look. They won't wake, not unless you activate the protocol. You say that like I've got a launch code tattooed somewhere. She tapped her wrist and opened a secondary panel, more symbols, more glowing. Technically, you might. I blinked. I'm sorry, what? Your DNA sequence, it's been flagged, you're a carrier. For what? Galactic responsibility? Is that contagious? Do I need shots? She sighed. You're encoded with access strands from the primordial index. You carry linguistic and cognitive keys buried, hidden. So I'm a walking alien flash drive? Yes, she said, but with less storage space and more opinions. Fair. I wandered to the corner of the room where a small drone hovered near the wall, projecting a hologram of what appeared to be the planet's surface. It rotated slowly, blinking with heat signatures and fault lines. One of them pulsed red. Hey, Kivri. She was busy arguing with a panel. I think the panel was winning. This spot here, I continued, red, flashing like it owes someone money. She crossed over and stared. That's the original node, she said quietly. Where the network woke. I stared at her. You mean this isn't the central hub? She shook her head. No, this is just a maintenance limb. Oh, I said. So we've basically been wandering through the arm of a sleeping god, and now we've found its alarm clock. She didn't laugh, but I think she wanted to. I sat down beside one of the pods. The figure inside was humanoid, too humanoid. Same general structure, same approximate height, same utterly unnerving stillness. I tapped the glass. Nothing happened. You've seen this before, haven't you? I asked. Kivri didn't answer right away. When I was a child, she said finally, we were taught stories, myths, that our ancestors spoke to the stars, that they wove messages into bloodlines. That one day someone would return who could finish the word. Finish it. She nodded. Knave, she whispered. It's not complete, it's the first syllable, the seed of a command. I frowned. So what happens if I say the rest? You can't, not yet. The language must grow in you, bloom. Oh, good, can't wait to go full linguistic daisy. She smiled at that, then returned to the console. An alert chimed. One of the pods emitted a low hiss. My heart did a sort of improvised jazz solo in response. The figure inside moved. Kivri, your soup's boiling. She was already there, scanning readings, fingers moving fast. It's not a full activation, just resonance. Resonance with what? She didn't answer. Instead, she slowly turned to me. You. I stood very still. Okay, let's assume for a moment that's bad. What do? We listen. The pod flickered. A light inside the casing formed words in the air. Alien script first, then standard galactic. Then, bizarrely, English. Hello, Prime Echo, input detected, awaiting verbal continuation. Echo, I asked. Resonant speaker, Kivri said. A voice chosen to complete the phrase that awakens the archive. I looked at the panel. I do * know the phrase. You will, she said, soon. Can I just say please and see what happens? She looked unimpressed. I was joking, I muttered. Mostly. The lights dimmed. A new sound echoed through the chamber, low, harmonic, almost like singing, but not in any voice I knew. It was layered, deep, like a chorus from a place that had forgotten time. The glyph Knave lit up on every wall, then it changed. Lines extended, curved, connected. Kivri gasped. What is it? It's growing, it's never done that before. The voice returned, louder now. Protocol authorization pending. Memory bridge initializing. Oh no, I muttered. I don't like the sound of that. Last time something initialized near me, I ended up unconscious. The first thing I did very maturely was point at the copy of myself and say, see, this is exactly why I don't use cloud backups. No one laughed, not even me. Standing in front of myself. Or some biotech clone/galactic voicemail that apparently contained my legacy. Was the kind of experience that required either deep meditation or immediate snacks. Unfortunately, I had neither, just a dry throat, a worried alien linguist, and an echo version of me who looked like he was judging my haircut. Kivri hadn't moved, and her grip on my arm had not relaxed. I didn't need advanced neural scanning to know she was trying to calculate at least 17 escape routes at once. The echo, other me, past me, alternate me with a better posture, tilted its head and studied me. I felt very seen and not in the emotionally supportive way. You were supposed to arrive earlier, it said. Well, I said, I took the scenic route, got shot at, fell into some ruins, ate a glowing beetle. You know, classic travel story. You don't remember, it said. Correct. Also, I would very much like to go back to the part where I supposedly * left you here. Because unless I had a highly classified trip to Virelia 6 after high school, that seems unlikely. You are the Prime Echo, it replied. You carry the imprint, you were seated with the language key and tethered to the failsafe. Okay, I said slowly. Now translate that to idiot, please. Kivri let go of my arm. You're a carrier, she said. A genetic relay. When your ancestors were chosen, they were embedded with fragments of the archive's core language, buried in code, passed through generations. You're the activation node. Great, I said. So I'm a talking USB stick with anxiety issues. The echo turned to the console. Its hands moved swiftly, accessing layers of data I couldn't begin to interpret. Streams of symbols flowed across the walls, projections flickering into existence all around us. Cities, stars, war, more war, then Earth. Wait, I said, pointing. Why is that * here? Because it was marked for integration, the echo said. Integration sounds suspiciously like invasion. Preservation, Kivri corrected. They wanted to share the knowledge, connect the last threads. With secret buried protocols and cryptic symbols, I said, this is the worst group chat I've ever been added to. The echo paused. The signal is spreading, it said. The word is waking, you must choose, finish it or sever it. What does that even mean? Finishing the word completes the link. All seeded networks awaken. Knowledge transfers. Connections open. But I waited. But I prompted. The echo finally looked at Kivri, not at me. Some memories can't be filtered. The pain, the collapse, the final sequence, it will come with everything. Light and fire, grief and clarity. Okay, great, I said. So best case, I become a walking space library. Worst case, I cry a lot and accidentally cause a supernova. Kivri stepped between us. You don't have to do anything, she said quietly. We can leave, seal the chamber, let the past rot. The echo shook its head. It's already begun. He triggered the glyph. I took a step back. Wait, you're saying just asterisk looking at the word was enough? You didn't look, the echo replied. You understood part of it. Your mind started to shape the final syllable. I slapped both sides of my head. Okay, no more thinking. From now on, I do everything on instinct, like a raccoon. Kivri sat on the floor, crossed her legs, and stared at the ceiling. The glyph floated above us now, incomplete but pulsing, like it was breathing in time with something older than air. Why won't you tell me the rest of it? I asked her. You know it, don't you? She didn't answer. The echo did. She refused the final sequence when her people collapsed. They feared what the word could do. They tried to cut it out of themselves. And did it work? No, it just made them forget why they built it. There was a long pause. I sat down across from Kivri and handed her a piece of dried vine root, the closest thing we had to comfort food. She took it without a word. You ever think this would happen? I asked her. Sitting underground with two versions of me, contemplating whether or not to reboot the universe. No, she said. I always assumed it'd be worse. That's fair. The lights around us began to dim, replaced by stars projected in the air, mapped constellations, planetary clusters, spinning models of civilizations now gone. Each one had a thread, and each thread led back to one thing, the word. It was more than a command. It was a networked thought, a philosophical root structure, a code designed to unlock memory, language, and power across species. It wasn't a weapon, not exactly, but it had once ended a war. Not by destruction, by understanding, and that was what scared everyone. Do you trust me? I asked Kivri. She looked at me for a long time. Not yet, she said, but I don't think I'm supposed to. That's encouraging. I stood. Faced the echo, faced myself. Show me. The glyph shimmered, grew. The last syllable formed, not with sound, but with asterisk knowing asterisk. A convergence of meanings that filled the mind like a rush of clear water. Grief, memory, choice, hope, and something far older, asterisk, unity, asterisk. The echo stepped back. You've seen it. I do want asterisk to say it. You don't have to, it replied. Now that you know it, the network knows. I turned to Kivri. So, what do we do now? She stood slowly, her expression unreadable. We find out who else remembers, I blinked, and if no one else does, then we teach them. I sighed. You know, I came here hoping for a quiet mission, maybe a few pretty rocks, some weird alien selfies. Instead, I've become the galaxy's most stressed-out language app. Kivri smirked. Update pending. The glyph above us pulsed once more. Somewhere, very far away, something answered back. The signal came back 12 hours later, right in the middle of what had been shaping up to be my best nap of the month. The floor vibrated just enough to jolt me out of a dream where I was trying to explain taxes to a group of confused beetle priests. I sat up, disoriented, with a blanket made of my own jacket and an ache in my spine that whispered, "You are not as young as you pretend to be." Kivri was already at the console. Either she didn't sleep or she had developed the art of sneaky unconscious productivity, which frankly seemed unfair. She didn't look up as I stumbled over. The reply. I asked, voice still groggy. She nodded. It came from one of the surviving nodes, external. External, I blinked, as in asterisk off-planet external. Yes, I rubbed my face. Oh, good. Now we're collecting attention from the asterisk other ruins. This keeps getting better. She brought up the display. A thin blue thread connected our location to a distant point, somewhere in orbit, maybe beyond. The file was still decrypting. The glyph shimmered faintly in the corner of the screen, now subtly altered, elongated, as if it too was evolving. Do we know who sent it? No, but the signature is known. I waited. She didn't elaborate. Kivri, please tell me we're not about to open a message from someone you used to date. She looked up, face impassive. Worse, I immediately regretted asking. Great, fantastic. Shall I prepare snacks or emergency escape pods? You'll need both. I watched the data flicker into view. A voice, calm, genderless, probably synthetic, filled the room. To the prime thread, the signal has been acknowledged. The memory is alive. You are advised to prepare the conduit. Others will come. The message ended. No signature, no location tag, just that. Kivri stood still for a long time. I recognized that look now. It was the same one she wore every time something ancient and vaguely horrifying decided to remember it had unfinished business. Define asterisk others, I said, after the silence stretched too long. She sat down, her shoulders slumped just a little. The architects. Oh, that's all you've got. Would you rather I screamed? Yes, actually. I took a breath and rubbed the back of my neck. The architects, I repeated. The ones who built this, all this? Yes. The ones who vanished after everything went wrong? Yes, and they're coming asterisk back. It seems so. Do they usually RSVP so politely? She shot me a flat look. I tried to smile. It didn't help. The next few hours were a blur of preparation, which for me mostly meant packing up our makeshift camp, trying to decipher glyphs with increasing frustration, and mentally drafting my apology speech to Earth if I accidentally triggered a galaxy-wide brain download. Kivri, meanwhile, was busy rerouting energy from dormant nodes, checking climate stabilizers, and issuing commands in a language that sounded like someone arguing with a wind chime. "I don't suppose," I said around mouthfuls of vine root jerky, "you have a formal greeting prepared for when the Galactic architects arrive." "Yes, let me guess, it's a weapon." She didn't deny it. The atmosphere changed that evening. Literally, the wind shifted direction, carrying with it a charge that made the air tingle. Even the sand vibrated as if the planet was bracing for company. Then the sky opened. 3 black shapes descended through the cloud cover, sleek, silent, and angular in a way that suggested either extremely advanced technology or that someone had finally turned a knife into a spaceship. The lead ship settled just outside the ruined perimeter. No weapons, no fanfare, just a low pulse barely audible. I turned to Kivri. "This is the part where you say something comforting." She adjusted the scarf around her neck. "They don't kill unless provoked. That's not comforting, that's barely reassuring. That's like saying sharks don't bite unless wet." We approached together. The air shimmered as we crossed into the ship's gravity field, an old trick used to discourage trespassers and annoy people with sinus issues. A hatch opened, and they stepped out. 3 figures, tall and featureless, no faces, no eyes, just smooth metallic contours that shifted color as they moved. One of them held a sphere. It floated from their palm like a lazy moon. The one in the center spoke. "Thread carrier, echo. Interface complete. You have awakened the sequence." "Yes," I said, as confidently as possible for someone who had once lost an argument to a talking elevator. "And I have asterisk questions." The sphere pulsed once. Light bathed my face. I felt a tingling sensation crawl behind my eyes like a thought trying to unzip itself. Kivri." She held up a hand. "It's just a scan. They're verifying the thread." "Can they asterisk not verify the thread by, say, shaking hands or sending a polite questionnaire?" "They don't have hands." "Fair point." The sphere dimmed. The lead architect stepped forward. "The sequence is complete. The conduit will now open." "I did agree to open any conduits," I said quickly. "I still haven't figured out how to close my travel mug without spilling." They ignored me, typical. Kivri stepped beside me. Her voice was calm, even. "We need clarity," she said. "Not just activation, we want answers, purpose, meaning. That is not part of the original function." "Well," I muttered, "maybe you should have updated your terms of service." The architect stared, if you can call it that. Then the lead figure reached toward me. The gesture wasn't threatening, just deliberate. "The memory is yours, take it." A panel on its arm slid open. Inside, a glyph, the full word, every curve and line etched in living crystal. I hesitated. Kivri took a step closer. "You don't have to touch it," she said. "You can walk away." I stared at the glyph. The word pulsed in my brain, unspoken, but there, like a song you'd only heard once but never forgot. I reached out. My fingers hovered over the glyph, and I whispered, "Can I get a user manual first?" The architects did not laugh, not even a polite mechanical chuckle. I was beginning to think they weren't big on humor, or metaphors, or possibly anything with warmth. The glyph shimmered, light sliding along its surface in hypnotic rhythms. I was still standing there like someone who'd been handed a mysterious button with a label that read, "Press for enlightenment. May also cause apocalypse." Kivri said nothing. Just stood a few feet behind me, arms folded like a bouncer at the world's strangest nightclub, silently daring me to either ruin the galaxy or walk away. I took a breath. "Okay," I muttered. "Fine. Let's see what's behind door number cosmic trauma." My fingers brushed the glyph. It pulsed once. Then everything disappeared, not dramatically, not like a light switch flicking off or a sci-fi fade to black. No, this was more like the universe had been waiting politely for me to finally press the Install Update button. And now it was going to take me on a very intense slideshow of things I never asked to see. The world shifted sideways. I was standing floating. In a space that wasn't space, surrounded by layers of memory that weren't mine. Cities, worlds, entire languages unfolding at once, pouring through me like I was a poorly secured conduit for someone else's lifetime of knowledge. It was like drinking an ocean through a straw. And the weird part, I understood it. I saw the architects in their original forms, organic, not yet the sleek, faceless constructs they had become. I saw their rise, their desperation to preserve thought, their wars against entropy. I saw the moment they encoded the glyph, the language that wasn't just spoken but embedded asterisk, designed to awaken across timelines, across bloodlines. I saw my own world, Earth, a dot on their map, a seedbed, the memory unraveled more, and then I saw myself. But not just asterisk me asterisk, the other echoes, other carriers. Versions scattered across different planets, different eras. All with fragments of the glyph. All chosen, most unaware, a few already awakened. Some had finished the word, some had not survived that. The vision slowed. I felt the weight of the full word settle in my chest. Not just meaning, but function asterisk. A key that didn't open doors so much as change the shape of what doors even were. I blinked and the world came back, the ship, the ruins. The glyph still glowing, but dimmer now. Kivri looked at me carefully. Are you still in there? I nodded slowly. I think so, but I may now know 7 ways to reorganize molecular structures using ancient vowels. Any side effects? Extreme craving for noodles. Also, I'm pretty sure I dreamed in 3 dimensions. She raised an eyebrow. That's normal, not when the dream scolded me for grammar errors. I turned to the architects. I saw asterisk everything. You are the final conduit, the lead one said. Now the signal can complete. Kivri stepped forward. What happens when it completes? Connection across all seeded worlds. Language unifies thought, thought shapes matter, memory rethreads time. That, I said, sounds suspiciously like it might break reality. Correction, refine reality. Kivri crossed her arms, and if we refuse? Then all seeded threads remain isolated, knowledge fades, collapse resumes. I threw up my hands. Ah yes, the classic sci-fi choice, trigger enlightenment and maybe melt a few brains, or let everything quietly die of cultural amnesia. Kivri looked at me. What do you want? I hesitated. The truth was, I didn't know. I hadn't asked for this. I'd come here expecting a recon mission with bad food and maybe some ancient ruins I could sketch and send back to Central Archives with smug comments. Not legacy, not language that could alter physics, not the power to end a 1,000-year silence. I looked at the glyph, the word. And for once I understood asterisk it, not just what it meant, but what it asterisk wanted. It wasn't a weapon, it was an offering. A way to remember not just facts or data, but the meaning behind it, the intent, the stories, the context. The echo had said it would come with pain, he wasn't wrong. But maybe some pain was worth remembering. I want to finish it, I said quietly, but only if others choose to hear asterisk it, no forced uploads, no neural overrides. Kivri stepped beside me. And if they choose silence? Then we respect it, I said, but we give them the asterisk option, the choice to connect. The architects paused, then the lead construct lifted its hand. A second glyph appeared, smaller like a companion to the first. Broadcast key recalibrated, consent-based link established, transmission will begin when called. I took the key. It felt light. Kivri turned to me. You're going to be annoying about this, aren't you? Extremely, I said. I plan on naming it, maybe Larry. She sighed. You're holding the most advanced linguistic technology in galactic history. And Larry will be asterisk loved, thank you very much. She shook her head but smiled. The architects began to ascend. No words, no ceremony, just a quiet retreat to wherever they came from. I turned to Kivri. So now what? Now we teach. I grinned. Do I get a chalkboard? You get a small colony of telepathic beetles who take grammar very seriously. I can work with that. The first thing I taught was the word for coffee. Priorities. We returned to the surface with sunlight in our eyes and ancient memory in our pockets. The ruins felt smaller now, not less mysterious, but less lonely. The glyph still shimmered on the cracked walls, but now it looked less like a warning and more like a whisper. Not a command, a suggestion, a door you could open or walk past. Kivri made me promise I wouldn't try to activate it in my sleep. You mutter when you dream, she'd said. You might trigger a small planetary reorganization. So we set up a beacon instead, quiet, modest. Not a transmission, but an invitation. A pulsing thread that reached outward like a hand, no pressure, no override, just a presence that said, there is a story here if you want to hear it. And some did. The first to arrive weren't diplomats or scholars. They were just people. A farmer from Irian 3 whose grandmother had once hummed a tune that matched a line of glyphs. A pilot who said he'd dreamed in glyphs since he was a child and thought it was just a glitch. A linguist from Mars who cried when he saw the symbols light up under his fingertips. Each of them brought a piece. Each of them had heard the asterisk start asterisk of the word in some form, without knowing the rest. They had stories, memories, jokes that didn't translate well but were charming anyway. One of them swore the glyph looked like a cat trying to do yoga. The colony grew. We set up learning hubs, slow and careful. Not to teach asterisk the asterisk word, but to teach language around asterisk it. Context, nuance, humor, contradiction. We called it the weave. Not because it sounded poetic, though it did, but because it felt right. Every new speaker added a thread. Every joke told in a new language twisted the fabric a little tighter, stronger. Kivri and I developed a curriculum. She insisted on structure. I insisted on sarcasm. One day I caught her lecturing a group of students using a pointer shaped like a beetle and the phrase, "If you conjugate that verb wrong one more time, I'll feed you to the archives." She claimed she was joking. The students didn't look sure. We built a cafe. I'm serious. Right in the shadow of the oldest tower, with solar panels, jury-rigged espresso machines, and a hand-drawn chalk sign that read, "Glyphs and grit, come for the caffeine, stay for the enlightenment." It became the hub of everything. People argued over syntax there, fell in love over verb tenses, misused modifiers, and got politely roasted by a 7-year-old from a moon colony who spoke 3 dialects and had 0 patience for misplaced glottal stops. I started writing again. Not reports, not official logs. Just stories, fiction, nonsense. One tale was about a glyph that got lonely and tried to become a cat. It was terrible. People loved it. Sometimes, late at night, I'd sit on the old ledge above the crater and think about the echo. About the version of me still resting deep below, stored in stasis, a reminder of the old cycle. I left him there. Not because I was afraid, okay, maybe asterisk, slightly asterisk, but because some echoes aren't meant to be overwritten. They're meant to remind us how far we've come. Earth eventually called. Technically, they shouted. A transmission broke through one morning during breakfast, causing 3 kettles to short-circuit and 1 student to accidentally trigger the door to the AI archive. That was a loud morning. The message was brief, formal, a little too cheerful. To Representative Ralkesh, your field mission appears extended. Please confirm status. Also, stop uploading encrypted metaphors into our satellites. The scientists are crying. Kivri handed me the receiver. I stared at it. Do I have to? She shrugged. You could lie. I sighed. Tempting, but probably unethical. Use passive voice. It sounds more diplomatic. I clicked on the mic.